Welcome to 3ABN Today. My name is C.A. Murray, and thank you for sharing some time with us and for joining us on a very special program. Just recently, we taped a number of interviews at the recent General Conference session in July of 2015. What a wonderful time we had as we talked to ministers and learned about ministries and great things that are being done in the name of Jesus Christ. Next up, John Lomacang had the opportunity to interview Colonel David Stern Crockett, his fifth great-grandson. His name is Ryan McCoy. He is a speaker and director for Sealing Time Ministries. This is a Bible-based media ministry, home-based and located just outside of Nampa, Idaho. So there is connection between the Adventist Church and the famous Davy Crockett. This is a nice interview. You'll enjoy it.
Hello friends, this is John Lomacang coming to you from the 60th General Conference session here in San Antonio, Texas. It's a wonderful time we're having here, meeting so many people that are not just supporters of 3ABN, but also people that are on our programming, people that are guests on many of the shows that we have done. And today I want to introduce you to someone that to me is the real McCoy. His name is Ryan. Ryan, so good to have you here today.
Thank you, John.
You know, I want the viewers to know why I kind of led into the phrase that you are the real McCoy. And I want to add, your sideburns kind of allude to that. Tell us about who you are, a little bit about your background, and then we'll get to what you do right now in just a few moments.
Well, John, I am the fifth great-grandson of Colonel and Congressman Davy, as he was more well known, Stern Crockett. And he died at the Alamo in a famous battle in 1836, resulting, really in the end in the state of Texas. And this has been a bastion here of independence and freedom ever since.
And a lot of people, just to remind you, we are here in San Antonio, Texas, and the Alamo, that very historical spot, is not too far away from the Alamo Dome. Last night I had a chance to go on the River Walk boat ride, and they talked about where it is, and I have yet to see it. But just to reiterate, Davy Crockett, as many people know him as Colonel Davy Crockett. But he has a rich history. A lot of people may remember him as Davy Crockett, the guy that they've seen on television, the many movies that have been done about his life. But he was also in a different branch of service. Let's talk about that.
So he was well known as a congressman. Okay. At the time, he served several different terms. There were a lot of different measures that he was part of. And as a result, he was probably one account says he was the most feared congressman at the time. As well as, of course, just being a folk hero. He was well aware, based on what I understand in history, of the persona that was building around him. He used it to his advantage to gain various ends. And being a frontiersman, he was a salt of the earth person. He understood what it was really like out in the field.
And so when people say remember the Alamo, we are really in essence saying Colonel David Stern Crockett had so much involvement in that. We have a book I'm going to share with actually you're going to share a quotation from it in just a few moments here. But he was not only an individual that was a senator, a colonel in the army, but going in the militia.
In the militia. Tennessee militia.
And just give us an overview what that battle was all about, because we talk about remember the Alamo.
All right, so the battle at the Alamo, Senator Crockett, Colonel Crockett, then at the time, came out interested in land. He actually signed up as a private at the age of 49 under Colonel Travis. He ended up in this famous now battle at the Alamo, fighting for independence and Texian freedom. I did not mispronounce that, Texian. And it was a famous battle, in part not because necessarily of his name, but because the odds were ridiculously against them. Santa Anna brought thousands of men. Some of them had marched 700 miles. And when they arrived here, Santa Anna was known for brutality and tyranny, and he was there to put down an insurrection or an uprising among the Texians. Colonel Travis and the others, the Bowie, the Tennessee Boys, and Colonel Crockett were all there. And it was a real confluence, you could say there, a perfect storm.
Wow.
And they were outnumbered, outgunned, everything was against them. And they chose to take a stand, even though they knew those odds were against them. If you look in the memoirs, he was well aware of the consequences of his actions.
Wow.
And that the enemy may well take the fort.
But he dug his heels, and I want you to get that book and share that quote, what I call his famous last words as the battle was winding down. Share that with me right now so that our listeners and our viewers can know, because this uprising, this resistance that he was involved in was one well known. I learned about it in history, American history, but it's amazing that I'm meeting someone that's connected in the lineage. And what he said in the closing moments, knowing that this battle was winding down, there's some words that I'd like our audience to remember of what he quoted that particular day. It was actually included in his memoir.
So this memoir here, this is dated, printed 1865. It's 150 years old this year. So this is a very old book. The very last words, March 5, 1836, was the year. And he says, pop, 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 bomb, 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 short for boom, boom, boom. Throughout the day, they were under heavy cannon fire. The pages previous to this mention it as hail. No time for memorandums now. Go ahead, liberty and independence forever. And it says, here ends Colonel Crockett's manuscript. Those are the very last words of David Crockett.
And the battle is still memorable today. People that come to San Antonio, they've told many of our constituents that have come from all over the world, don't forget the Alamo, remember the Alamo. But now there's also something else in his lineage from the grandson of Davy Crockett on the issue of religious liberty. Talk about that today.
Yeah, so in 1885, Senator Robert Hamilton Crockett, he is an indirect relation of mine, but through David Crockett, still a family relation. There was Sunday laws on the books in the state of Arkansas, and he was a senator in the state of Arkansas. It came to his attention that there was a lot of persecution going on.
Right.
There was one story in particular that is just heart-wrenching of what happened to one family. And as a result, he went into the Senate in Arkansas and he related a number of stories. I'll read just a few sentences from Liberty Magazine, 1939, second quarter, and this is about page 17.
Okay.
Senator Crockett mentioned scores of cases where Seventh-day Adventists and Seventh-day Baptists had been fined and imprisoned for no other crime than resting on the seventh day of the week and working on the other 6 days as God had commanded them to do. He told how they had settled in the early days in Arkansas while it was yet a wilderness filled with the howl of the wolf and the scream of the panther and the wail of the wild cat. They soon changed the wilderness, the prairies, the valleys into a veritable paradise. These people, many of them, said he, Seventh-day Adventists and Seventh-day Baptists, these are people who religiously and conscientiously keep Saturday, the seventh day, as the Sabbath. And it goes on. Wow, wow.
So this issue that we're looking at, that's shaping the future of America and has become an issue around the world, Sabbath versus Sunday, was not new. It was something that our earlier pioneers in America had faced and addressed that very same issue.
And so as a result of his impassioned plea to the Senate, there were laws immediately put back on the books. Exemptions for Sabbatarians and Seventh-day Adventists were put onto the books. So this, the Crockett line and family has a history of standing up for what they believe, and it actually has relations to our Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Praise the Lord for that. Now, I want to get to your story very quickly. We don't have a lot of time. This is kind of a vignette of an interview. Tell us about you coming back to the Lord, and then we'll talk about your ministry.
So in my early 20s, I drifted out of the church. As a result, it's a long story, but I ended up owning a little land out in the middle of nowhere, and Manistee National Forest surrounded us. No electricity, no water. You could kind of liken it to a Doug Batchelor story, minus the cave.
Minus the cave.
But as a result, I had a lot of time to think about God. I had a lot of time to read.
Right.
I decided that I would get a 3ABN dish. Now, without electricity, that's a bit of a challenge, but we would run a generator, use batteries at first, and those things to watch 3ABN. As a result, I became convicted that I really needed to go back to church to pay my tithe, of all things. I knew the truth. That wasn't anything new. But as a result, we decided to go back to church, pay our tithe, and the result of that, when God promises that He'll pour out a blessing you can't receive, He follows through with that. And it was just incredible what happened after that, and we got into ministry.
And the Lord, I like what you said a moment ago, convicted. Recently I was toying with the two statements, convicted and converted. A lot of people are convicted about the truth, convicted about the Sabbath, the truth of the state of the dead and the sanctuary, but they're not converted. So these truths that you were convicted of in your past didn't up until that point lead to conversion. Now you're converted and convicted.
My 30th birthday, I was outside after watching 3ABN. I was outside enjoying the sunshine. I had just finished the book Desire of Ages. It was Sabbath morning. I was not in church. And the Lord spoke, at my 30th birthday, the Lord spoke into my mind that morning, and He said, Ryan, today is your 30th birthday. My son began his ministry for me on his 30th birthday. What are you doing for me?
Wow.
And the rest of the day, I have to be honest, I really didn't have much to say. I was dumbfounded and in thought.
And as a result, you began a ministry called Sealing Time Ministry. Tell us about that briefly.
Yes, so Sealing Time Ministries is a multifaceted ministry. We produce video. We have produced thousands of hours of video for now, for 140 Adventist speakers so far.
Wow.
You being one of them.
Oh, that's right, a Red Book Camp meeting.
That's right,
California.
Surviving the Crisis.
That's right.
And the Coming Crisis, I think it was.
The Coming Crisis, yes.
And the outreach has just gone around the world. We have so many different subjects. It's so multifaceted with the number of speakers. We're reaching people all over the world.
Some of those is like Sean Boonstra from Voice of Prophecy.
So yes, we actually provide also streaming services as well as website hosting. Voice of Prophecy has been one of our most prominent clients. We help stream their big evangelistic meetings to all their satellite churches.
And recently, with the ministry the Lord has given to you, you have had an opportunity. I looked at the magazine that you shared with me earlier today. In the GC edition of the Adventist Review, you were featured. And tell us about that story, about reading the portions of the Declaration of Independence.
Well, so on the 4th of July, I read the Declaration of Independence over at the Alamo. I was a featured guest. They had me greeting guests. It was a huge honor. As a result, of course, because of religious liberty and those things, there's a number of different avenues of interest that happen because of that. As a result, because of the family heritage and those things, so they gave me the flag that was flown over the Alamo on the 4th of July, 2015, during our GC session here.
Amazing.
And then we've got a certificate as well as to that fact.
Look at that, look at that. And that was just recently given to you, because I'm looking at the dates, July 4th, 2015.
Yes, this was just given a few days ago to me.
Wow.
And so it certifies both the flag here and my family heritage as well.
That's wonderful. Now, as you think of the future of Sealing Time Ministries, what would you say to those that are watching this program? And I want to wind up with a quotation that was included in that article. I'll share that with our viewers. What would you say to encourage individuals? Because we are living, I believe, in the sealing time. I think that's a part of it. And also highlighting, you do accept invitations. Am I correct?
Yes. So I actually am a student of eschatology. I very much enjoy studying it. That's one of the things that I was doing out there, was doing a lot of studying. Yes, I do speaking engagements. We have traveled all over the U.S., even outside of the U.S. Just recently, I've begun to share more of the family history. As a result, the family history, David Crockett knew what it meant to draw a line in the sand. He knew what it meant to take a stand for what he believed.
That's right.
And as we head into these last days, regardless of whether we wanted to or not, there are lines being drawn in the sand, and every one of us needs to know where we stand.
Wow, praise the Lord. Well, Ryan, it's good to have you here today, but before we wind up, I want to read this quotation that was featured in that article of the Adventist Review. It said, and I'm quoting you, "It doesn't take a whole lot of people to make a difference in this world." Ryan, thank you so much for allowing the Lord to use you to make a difference, not only in your lineage, but we are truly living in the time of the sealing, and the Lord has the people standing firmly for sharing the truth and getting other people ready for the time in which we live. God bless you. Thank you so much for being here. And friends, may the Lord continue blessing you here at GC 2015.
One of the things that we are constantly impressed by is the fact that God is doing so very many things on so many different fronts to promote the gospel around the world. There are ministries like 3ABN, which has the opportunity to highlight other ministries, but one of the things that we see is that there is really no place on planet Earth where men and women are where there are not people of God, people of goodwill, who are lifting up the mighty and matchless name of Jesus. Three very unique ministries that are all very contemporary in their affect and effect. One, Tell the World, a movie, a film about the history of the church. Two, a hospital ministry, a medical ministry under attack by the forces of nature. And then this fifth great-grandson of the famous Davy Crockett doing what he can to lift up the name of Jesus. These ministries that we highlight from time to time are worthy of your prayers and your support. So God bless you until we see you again. Hold on to Jesus Christ. He'll be coming back soon. You want to be there to meet him. God bless.